I am at Seatown today. I usually come here at low tide. Today I'm here in the morning at high tide for a reason. But perhaps now you might be able to see why I normally come here at low tide. There's no beach. And these enormous, fierce waves are beating right against the rocks and the cliff faces. So yeah, this is the reason I normally come here at low tide. This is why these beaches can be quite dangerous. Obviously there's quite a lot of waves today, there's quite a lot of surf. It's not always as rough as this. We've had lots of storms and high winds recently. So this is what can happen if you allow yourself to be on the beach as the tide's coming in. So you could very easily get trapped against the cliffs. And I can see a little bit of beach along there, but not much. And the waves are crashing right up against the cliffs, and the cliffs are much more prone to fall when they're being undermined by these waves. So I know in previous videos I've stressed how important it was to be here on the falling tide, but here is a very visible demonstration of why. But not to worry, I'm here all day. I've got all day. I'm here on my own today. Jenny and Doggo are safe at home, nice and warm. I'm going to spend all day on the beach, so I'm going to wait for the tide to go out, get along there, because the good thing about, well, from my point of view, the good thing about these huge waves and this high tide is that new fossils might have been washed out of the cliff face here underneath Golden Cap and maybe just lying on top of the beach ready to be collected. This, you can see the amount of sediment. You can see these waves are grey. They're full of sediment and sand and grit and gravel. It's all getting churned up. So the stuff that's been under the surface is going to be brought to the surface. Stuff that's buried in mud in the cliff face will be washed clean and spread across the beach. So it should be a good day for fossil hunting. It's a beautiful day, nice bright day. So anyway, I've just got to wait for the tide to go out now. So I've brought food with me today, and I brought a ration pack to keep me going. It's not a 24-hour ration pack, it's just a one meal job. Let's go to Studio Shrimp now for unboxing or unpacking of the ration pack. A parcel has arrived. This one's come all the way from Lithuania. And it is a menu number 3, Lithuanian field ration. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be able to understand this language, so what I think we'll do is we'll just unpack this. I'll lay it all out and do some translation and come back. So, actually it's got an easy tear thing there, but because I'm going to try and put it back in this bag, I think we'll just... So, we've got a tray for food heating. We've got some little burner tablets and some matches and what looks like a biodegradable spoon. Interesting. Rusks. Biscuits brown. Almonds. And a pack with some, what looks like to be some sauces and other things. We've got, looks like chocolate biscuits. Almost a McDonald's looking sauce there. Not sure. Pea soup with breadcrumbs. Instant drink with cherry concentrated juice powder. Sugar. Ice mint chewing gum. And then this is the main course. And this is interesting. It's got a flameless ration heater. This is a very odd mix because these, I think, are... So there's a food tray. This is a... Well, we'll have a look at that in a minute. I think those are burner tablets.
a little stove, but there's also a flameless ration heater. Oh, there we go. And this is stewed beef with pearl barley mash. Okay, this is the point where, if I wasn't me, I would say let's get this out onto a tray. What's peculiar here is there's sugar, but there's no coffee. Anyway, yeah, I'm just going to make sure I've understood what all these things are. Just be back in a second. Actually, that's not chocolate biscuits, that's just chocolate. Okay, I'm an idiot. Obviously, gemas is jam, and it's blackcurrant jam. So that blackcurrant jam presumably goes with those biscuits. This is not, I don't think, a 24-hour ration because it's only got 1,300 calories in it. Oh, kilocalories, big calories. So this, I think, must be a meal. But yeah, it's very peculiar because we've got sugar, but we haven't got coffee. We've got an instant cherry drink, and we've got a soup. Pea soup with breadcrumbs, like an instant cup of soup. Let's just open up this thing, because this is a, yes, this is a metal tray. So this is a little thing that you bend those two tabs down, you bend those two tabs up, and it makes a little stove. A very, very basic little stove. That these are dry fuel tablets. So these are, I can't remember what the stuff is called, but they're like the things you used to use with model steam engines. I don't think they're allowed to make these anymore. Actually, I think these have been discontinued and banned in a lot of places. And then, yeah, in here we've got this, looks like biodegradable spoon. It looks like it's made of maybe wood pulp and some kind of starch binding it together. That'll be interesting to see how that holds up. We have got a refreshing towelette, lemon scented, a wet wipe, box of matches, motorsport, and a little cable tie. Presumably so that you could put it back in the bag and then hold that all shut or something, I don't know. I suppose the soup does need heating, so maybe these things are to boil a little bit of water in a cup or in a metal container to make the soup. Interesting. Anyway, this is what I'm going to be taking with me on my fossil hunting trip at Seatown. I probably will take some coffee with me because there isn't any here, and I like a cup of coffee.
So just for context, the waves in these videos often look like they're in slow motion. And the reason for that is they're bigger than they look on screen. So just for size estimate, this wave breaking now is taller than me. So most of these waves breaking in here would break over the top of my head. Some of the waves coming in would break over the top of my house. So it's a waiting game now, waiting for the beach to arrive, or waiting for the tide to leave the beach. Now it's possible that we might find there isn't as much beach here as I might have expected. Some of the beaches in this area, Lyme Regis, just over there, lost a lot of its beach from longshore drift. West Bay, just round that way, gained a new beach. So the waves and elements have been rearranging the coastline here quite a lot lately. Well, this moment of pause while we wait for the beach to be uncovered does afford me an opportunity to taste something from the ration pack. I think we'll open the chocolate. Okay, Ruta chocolate, 70% cocoa. That's pretty good. I can feel there's 2 slabs of chocolate in there. I'm only going to have one now because I've got an idea for the other one. It's a bit battered, it broke coming out of the packet. You might expect that. It's a ration pack, it's been shipped from Lithuania, so it got a bit of a knockabout in the post. Let's have a taste. Nice, dark, high cocoa chocolate. Good stuff. 9:30 now, and the waves have calmed down a bit and the surface starting to recede from the cliffs down there. Still not even going to think about getting down there until I can see a patch of gravel that's not getting any waves on it at all. At the moment, the beach, or what looks like beach there, is sticky clay at the foot of the cliff there, and it wouldn't be a good idea to walk on that. And yeah, there are still occasional big waves coming in, smashing against the rock or against the cliffs up there. I see a band of cloud out to sea, which looks like it might be dropping some rain. I wasn't expecting that today. I thought the forecast had a dry day today. I have got waterproof gear and I've got an extra waterproof layer if I need it, so it'll be okay. And yeah, there used to be a path across the top of the cliffs here, but the cliff has fallen and the path is no more. I wonder what that sign used to say. Probably about something about, in fact you can see there's layer upon layer of public notices here about footpaths being redirected. There's this notice and there's another one underneath it, and probably several more. So the cliffs eroding here and moving inland, and the cliff path being moved back is a periodic, regular process. I can begin to see gravel appearing when each wave recedes at the moment, but again, still not even going to think about getting along this beach until there are no waves breaking high up. So probably got about another hour to wait until it's dropped sufficiently. And this water, there's so much air in this water, so much turbulence and foam and air in this water, that if you fell in there you wouldn't float. 10 to 10, and definitely more beach down there, but no way to get to it still. This is the only access to that beach down there, well, unless you feel like clambering across the rocks, but I don't. But yeah, still no chance of getting on the beach just yet. More time has passed and the waves have receded about a metre or so. There's still no way down to the beach. Let's have a look and see what the beach looks like along there now. Yeah, still no way to get down there. Oh, there's that guy is trying to go along. That is madness. Walking along the soft mud, soft clay at the bottom of the cliff. It's not my job to tell him what is and is not safe. I'm going to keep an eye on him from here actually, because I'll call the Coast Guard if he goes in the water, but I'm not going down there to risk my own life. So yeah, this guy, I did wonder if this guy knows what he's doing, or if this guy really doesn't know what he's doing, and I think it's the latter. Just a moment ago he was up to his waist in water as it came in. He's clearly struggling to get across this sticky clay there, just to get along there to get the fossils. I can see a rock hammer in his hand. So I'm only going to go on the beach if I can get along the gravel in front of these rocks, and only if the waves are not doing what they're currently doing. So another hour maybe, but I am prepared to just abandon this and call it a day if it doesn't look viable. Well, happy to see that guy has made it onto the safety of the gravel, or the comparative safety of the gravel, but he's still clambering up the mudslides and the cliff falls. I'm all for self-determination, so he's presumably taking a risk that he's comfortable with. Good luck to him. My advice would be, don't do that. It's 11 o'clock now and there's still no safe passage onto the beach, but it is time for 11s. Now it's important to note, low tide today is at 20 to 2, so I will make sure that I turn around before that time. So if I do get onto the beach today, and I will only go down there if it's safe, I will make sure that I turn around before 20 to 2, so that I'm coming back before the tide starts rising. 411s is we're going to have some blackcurrant jam on 1 or 2 of these rusks, these hard biscuits, using my disposable MRE spoon. There we go, blackcurrant jam. I'll try to spread that. It's really, really thick jam. That looks good. Let's give it a taste. The jam's great, really fruity. I think I can taste plum in there. So it might be plum and blackcurrant. Nice and acidic though. Probably means it's got vitamin C in it, which is a good thing for a ration pack. Biscuits are rock hard. They are like ship's biscuits. And they've got, don't know if that's a husk from rye. No, it's a caraway seed. So the biscuits have got caraway seeds in them. I tend to think these would be better soaked in a stew or something like that to make them, to soften them up a bit, make them a bit more palatable. Maybe I'll do that with one of these, or I might soften it up, put it in my soup or something later. It's about 11:15 now, and there is still no safe passage onto the beach. I thought we would be able to get onto the beach by now. I don't know. I could wait another hour. It's getting to the point now where there is a beach visible, but these waves are quite big, and every now and again a really big one comes in. I think I'm going to call it and decide that I'm not getting on the beach here at Seatown today, and we'll go somewhere else to resume the rest of the ration pack test. I don't know. I'm going to give it another half hour. Yeah, I think I've waited long enough. I'm going to call it, because look, it looks like you can walk along a bit of beach there and get along there, but if we wait a moment, watch what happens. I think there's just too much surf today to get down here, so let's go somewhere else. So decided we might go to Chesil Beach, and I've stopped here on the way. Actually, this is the Chesil Beach, this is the viewpoint above Abbotsbury. That's Chesil Beach down there, and that bit is the whole of the 10-mile stretch that I walked with a friend when we measured gravel for a whole day. Link in the video description and card to that video. I would stop and have my lunch here, but it's a little bit early, and also there's nowhere to stop and sit down or anything like that. So I think I'm going to go down to Abbotsbury and park up, and we'll walk along Chesil Beach. We'll continue reviewing the ration pack down there on the beach. So I'm on Chesil Beach now, just near Abbotsbury, walking towards Burton Bradstock. The surf is still really wild, so I won't be going very near the water, but we're going to wander along here a little bit, maybe try and find a bit of shelter, and by that time it'll be around about lunchtime. Yeah, so big waves every now and again crashing on the shore there, and again, if they look like they're in slow motion, that's because they're bigger than they look. This is interesting. There are these enormous chunks of peat have washed up from somewhere. I don't think they've come off the land, because they're all over this side. So probably in Storm Ingrid just recently, most likely waves overtopping this entire beach and washing up these chunks of peat, possibly from under the seabed out there, because the land used to extend further out. But yeah, weird chunks of peat and wood all compressed together, so probably come off the seabed. But it's curious that it's on top here, because that means the waves were coming up over the top of the beach. So yeah, here's a chunk of wood from out of that peat, and it's completely waterlogged and soft. Thousands of years old. But yeah, there's lots of it everywhere. The wind is quite relentless. I suppose we could try and find a little bit of shelter in the remains of this pillbox here. Here's a thing. That is a mermaid's purse. It's the egg case from usually a shark or a ray. In this case a ray. I think that's the undulate ray, possibly, maybe thornback. Quite a few of these around on the beach. They are empty egg cases, so they've hatched out, and somewhere out there the little rays are swimming. So it does occur to me actually that we might be able to do a bit of coastal foraging to supplement this ration pack. It is only a 1 meal ration pack plus snacks, and I'm not planning to stay out here until dark, but we might be able to make it into a bit more of a meal with a bit of coastal foraging. And I think we might stop in the shelter of this pillbox here and have lunch. I'm not going to try and go inside, the beach has gone inside. So yeah, I could sit down here, bit of shelter from the elements. But actually I can see another pillbox over there that's mostly intact and standing a bit higher above the gravel. So I think we'll make our way to that one and we'll stop there. And I'll do a bit of foraging on the way, and we'll see what we can cook up with the ration pack plus some foraged ingredients. Here's another ray egg case, mermaid's purse. We've got whelk egg cases there. That I think is a soft coral. Yeah, that's quite pretty, isn't it? Those weren't the things I'm intending to forage, by the way. See quite a marked delineation here between wet gravel and dry gravel. That's where the tide came to today. So if we'd been here earlier on, this would have been under the waves. We're not going to find any fossils here today, or not much. There are fossils found on this beach, but not a lot, and they tend to be quite worn. In terms of foraging opportunities today, it is going to be the things you've seen me forage before. Sea beet from this magnificent plant. I think this is actually the same plant I picked some from in a recent video. Looking a little bit weather worn now, but there's still a few nice leaves there. They're going to need a little wash. I've got spare water with me today. Babington's leek here. There's a whole video about that. These are looking a little bit windburned now, but we might find one that's in a sheltered spot that is looking a bit fresher than that. But yeah, loads and loads of that about. In fact, I can smell it. I can smell the aroma of onion in the air. Right, we're nearly at the other pillbox now. I'm getting hungry. So here's the pillbox. This one's quite intact. And we could go inside, but I really don't think it's very nice in here. It's full of silt and gravel, so I think I'll just sit on the leeward side. I found a bit of wood, got a bit of flat rock, but I thought I was going to need that for putting my stove on, but actually it'll go on the ledge here. Let's get cooking lunch. So I was trying to read the French instructions on my flameless ration heater, struggling to try to understand it, and of course on the other side it's got English. So tear at A, that's up here. Insert the unopened meal pouch into the heater bag. Pour 45 ml of water in there. Agitate, fold over, gently shake. Place on a safe surface. Make sure the heater pad is underneath the meal pouch. Wait 10 to 12 minutes. Enjoy your hot meal. Okay, well, let's do that. So tear at A. And all of these bits of plastic obviously are coming home with me, and I'll dispose of them carefully. Insert the unopened meal pouch, which is stewed beef with pearl barley mash. Insert that into the bag with the heater one side of it, so that's like that. Okay. Then I need 45 ml of water. Now I haven't got anything to measure 45 ml of water. There's probably is one of those little bags that was in there, but there isn't actually a proper measuring bag, so I'm going to do it by eye. So I reckon that's about 45 ml. Oh, the sun's coming out. Fold over, gently shake. You can hear it doing something. Yeah, it's getting hot. See it bubbling actually already. Right, so I just put a rock on that end to keep that closed. That's got to wait 10 or 12 minutes. So we'll do the soup, I think, while we're waiting, and I'll do something with this lot as well. So I've got in here, I've got some sea beet and some Babington's leeks. My pea soup needs to be made up with 300 ml of boiling water. 300 ml happens to be the capacity of this tin cup. I measured it before I went set out. I measured all of my different vessels. So my cup here is 300 ml. My drinking bottle is 400. So that's useful to just know. So I'm going to put that on to boil. I could use that little solid fuel heater that was in the ration pack, but I'm not going to. I brought my little gas stove with me. So the idea is we'll get that down there. The cup should balance on the top just about. It's a bit precarious, but it does go on there. Maybe not. I think we may instead boil the water in this thing. Lid on to keep the sand out. What we can do while we're waiting is make up this instant cherry concentrated juice powder drink. Now this is why we've got sugar in the pack. That sugar is to make this sweeter. I've got about 300 ml left of water in my drinking bottle there. So that's what the cherry juice drink powder looks like. It's just a slightly pink powder. Smells very fruity. That's going to go in there. Now the colour of this bottle is going to mask the colour of the drink a little bit. Give that a shake up and give that a moment to dissolve, and then give it another shake. My ration pack, my main meal down here is nice and hot. The water I can feel underneath there is boiling hot, so hopefully that's getting nicely warmed. I can see that water is now completely boiling, so we'll turn that stove off and we're going to make up the soup. So there goes the soup powder. I thought when it said breadcrumbs, I thought maybe it meant croutons, but it does look like it's actually fine breadcrumbs they've put in the soup. And in goes the boiling water. Now I could try to be completely authentic here and stir it with the spoon in the ration pack, but I did bring my own spoon as well, my own spork. So that is the pea soup with breadcrumbs. I'm going to give that a really good stir. It looks kind of thin. Well, it's all caked up at the bottom, so... Okay, I'm going to let that sit for a bit, and then we'll give that another stir. So the soup, I've given it another stir, and it's quite thin. I expected maybe a thicker pea soup, I suppose. Anyway, let's give it a taste. I mean, it's more or less what you would expect from a cup of soup. It's salty, it's savoury. It's not the best soup in the world, but actually on a cold, windy day like this, quite welcome. I needed something to warm me up, and this was just the trick. Yeah, not bad. I thought it would be a bit greener than that, being pea soup, but perhaps it's like a yellow split pea or something. Ration pack is still bubbling away down there, which is good news. While that's happening, I'm going to prep these wild vegetables. So my Babington's leeks will need trimming, chopping up. I'll check inside for bits of sand inside the leaves. They look pretty clean from here, but we will check. I'll get these chopped up. Same thing with the sea beet. It's going to need a rinse. Yeah, just really nice pieces of leek there. Yeah, those pieces of leek I don't think are going to need any washing at all. These leafy bits obviously do, so I'll cut these up separately and put them back in the bag. But yeah, the stems right down the bottom, they're nice and clean. The grit doesn't go down that far. And what I did when I picked them, you see, the outside bit here is quite dirty, but we just peel that off and we get down to a much cleaner layer in there. And I'll cut that to about there, and then we'll make a decision about what to do with the other bits. But yeah, some of these are going to be, that bit's going to need discarding, but there are some nice bits here. And then the sea beet, well, I think probably what I'll do first is give that a wash. Well, not with cherry juice. Some water in that bag with the sea beet. Give it a really good shake, and then pick out the sea beet and tear it into my pot. And hopefully if there's any gritty dirt, it will still be at the bottom of the bag rather than attached to the leaves. But yeah, mostly that sea beet's all right, so I'm just tearing that into the pan. And then my leek leaves, the ones I want to keep, are also going to go in there. So I'll tear off the bits I'm discarding first, and then we'll put the leek leaves in there like that. There's no point keeping that bit, but the nice bits will go in there. I mean, I've already got quite a lot of leek in this pot, but we might as well have some flavour if we're going to do a bit of foraged cooking. Flavour is important. Alright, yeah, second verse, same as the first. Bit of water in there like that. Give it a shake around. And then pick out and tear the leaves into the pan. Quite a lot of vegetables there. That's quite good, because obviously this ration pack is a little bit light on vegetables. You know, for perhaps obvious reasons. I'm just going to put the lid on that for the moment, and I'll cook that in a minute. Meanwhile, my cherry drink is fully dissolved. Let's give that a taste. It tastes like artificial cherry. It isn't. It's made with cherry juice, but it tastes like cherry flavoured sweets. It's nice. you know, make a change from drinking just water, wouldn't it? I'm not going to put the sugar in there, I don't think. Not bad. But now it is time for the main event, which is this thing. You're meant to tear off at B here to get the meal pouch out. I don't really see the point of that. We can just pull it out the top here. Feels nice and warm. Looks okay. So shake it down to the bottom. And the top tears off like that. And there is the beef with barley porridge. Is it pearl barley porridge? Pearl barley mash. So it's like minced beef with pearl barley. I can see a bit of carrot there. Yeah, I mean, nice and savoury. It's really, really tender. It's a bit like brisket. Really flavourful beef. I'm going to save about half of that beef with barley because I've got an idea. I'm going to have a little bit of water in there with my foraged vegetables. Not too much because I'm going to do some... We're basically just going to mix it all up here and see what happens. So, the rest of my pea soup is going to go in there as well to make kind of broth. Put a little bit more water just to rinse the last bit out of the mug. We're okay for salt because that soup was a bit salty, but I think we could do with some pepper. Guess where I got that from? Bit of black pepper then. And then I'm going to put that lid on just while those vegetables cook. Okay, that's starting to bubble now. And into here, the rest of my beef and barley is going to go. So we're really just mixing up everything we've got. Well, that looks like that might have been most of the barley. Maybe the beef was all at the top. Okay, and again, so that we don't waste a bit, I'm going to put some water in here and shake that up. Okay, that goes in as well. So, barley and wild vegetable stew. There are a few little bits of beef in there. It looks like I've got most of the beef in the top layer. Never mind. Once that's really properly going, I'm going to put the lid on and let it simmer for a bit to cook those vegetables properly. I'm going to put the rest of these crackers. We've got 2.5 of these hard biscuits left. I'm going to put those on top as well, and they'll soften and cook into my stew. And yeah, it's turned out to be a really beautiful day. I do wonder if we might have got down to the beach at Seatown. Perhaps I should have stayed there. Maybe would have found some fossils, but it just looked a bit risky to me. Right, so bubbling away really nicely now. The rest of those biscuits are going to go in. I've broken them up a little bit, and I think they are going to need a bit of cooking to make them palatable. Certainly for my teeth anyway. So they might completely dissolve, they might completely break up and thicken the stew, or they might just end up a bit like dumplings. I suppose we should do the taste for seasoning thing with a spoon that probably still tastes slightly of jam. Oh, maybe that will need a bit more salt actually. I don't know, we'll see. Might need a little bit more liquid in there. But my leeks are still not quite tender, not far off though, and it's thickening up nicely. I think these biscuits are starting to break down. Let's see what happens. They've only been in there about 5 minutes. Let's see what they're like now. Kind of chewy now, a bit like really robust pasta. A bit longer I think. Okay, I think that's probably had long enough, so I'm going to turn it off now and just let that sit for 5 to 10 minutes while I finish my cherry drink. It is lovely sitting here though, watching the waves. Can't see another human. The shadows of the clouds zooming across the surface of the water and the beach. Okay, so it's lunchtime on Chesil Beach, and here we go. So this is my put everything in a pot and stew it together stew. I think that looks all right. It's thickened up really nicely. The greens are still bright green but tender, and these biscuits now kind of like chewy pasta, like really dense chewy pasta, but cooking them has really brought out that caraway seed flavour. Yeah, I think I must have eaten all the beef out the top of that pack to begin with. Let's have a look. Bit of Babington's leek, bit of sea beet, bit of barley, bit of the biscuit. Let's give that a go. It's good. I mean, I really like the sea beet's one of my favourite foraged vegetables anyway. It's like spinach really ought to be. It's really tasty, and it doesn't cook down to mush like spinach does. Yeah, I think putting these biscuits into something, dissolving them into something, crushing them, using them to thicken something or make a kind of porridge type of thing, I think that's probably quite a common thing with these ration packs. I've never served in the military, so I wouldn't know for sure, but I think that's a thing that happens. It's still very hot, but that tastes good. I'm glad I brought that pepper with me. Doesn't need any additional salt. I suppose probably the leeks have probably got a bit of salt in them just from the being here on the beach, but that soup was quite salty as well. Oh look, there's a bit of beef. We got a bit of beef. In case you're wondering what that little rock was I just picked up, it's a piece of lime bay agate, really common stone on this beach. There's another bit. There's just loads of it about. Yeah, lime bay agate. In fact, looking across here I can see loads of it. Anyway, I'm just going to finish off my lunch now. That was actually all right. I think that pea soup probably needed to be boiled again, because I think whilst some of that thickening did come from the other things I put in there, that pea soup probably wasn't completely thick in the mug. Now, I did say we weren't likely to find any fossils on this beach. That's not strictly true. These pieces of flat stone here that I've used, one for my stove and various other things, this is limestone and it's full of little shells. Usually not anything very recognizable. It's little broken up pieces of oyster shells and cockle shells and those sorts of things, possibly brachiopods. Sometimes you can recognize the pattern from a shell. Sometimes you can just recognize the shape. This piece here is the same stuff but is dried out a little bit, but if I turn it over so you can see the wet side, there's a fairly big piece of oyster shell there and another little bit sticking out there, and you can see some of the mother of pearl still gleaming in here. That's one of the fossils we find on this beach. I do wonder actually, if I got a really nice piece of this and ground it completely flat, polished it, it might be quite decorative. So I will have a look out for a decent piece with lots of very visible shells in it that's small enough to put in my pocket. We might take that home and polish it if I can find one. So leaving that pillbox behind, I think we will wander a bit further along the beach. I can see another pillbox down there. Maybe we'll go as far as that. It's a lovely day. I do need to see if I can find a portable piece of this shelly sedimentary stone. I mean, there's a piece with lots of nice little sparkles in it, but what I'm hoping for is one where you can really see the shapes of the shells. There's still quite a breeze. I mean, it might be quite nice to get one that's already almost a rectangle. I'm going to put that in my pocket because that's a nice-ish piece and it's nice and compact. Gosh, you can see how much of this beach has been scoured away here. This is what I'm hearing has happened all the way along the Dorset coast. This weather we've been having is reshaping the beaches. I mean, it's just nature doing its thing, and it doesn't care that we thought there should be a beach there. So without actually putting myself in the danger zone, let's go down and have a look at these waves. It's probably about as close as I'm going to get. And yeah, I don't think it ever really comes across properly on camera, but that wave breaking there is taller than I am. I'm 5'11", 180 something centimeters. So those are 2-meter waves. I know they probably don't look like much, but this beach claims lives. What tends to happen is if people get stuck in the surf, when those waves break, the surf zone just becomes a soup of air and water and stone, and it's just impossible to stand up straight. And once you go over in this water, as I said earlier, there's just so much air in that water there, there's so much foam, you just wouldn't be buoyant. So I do need to be a little bit careful here. I mean, we can see where the high tide line was because there's a mark, but yeah, every now and again you get a wave that comes in. I'm okay here, but every now and again you get a big wave that comes in. And the other thing is, you can't run away on this beach. This Chesil Beach pebbles, they're all very rounded. We've made a whole video about that. But if you try running on this, you're just basically throwing your feet up behind you without making any headway. So yeah, I think I'll stay back up here. So I will have to be careful because actually we've got a little bit of a bluff up here, just small cliffs. So if the tide did come all the way in, that's probably where it would go up to. So this wouldn't be a good place to be. There's another bit of that stuff. That one's got a little bit more variety of stuff in it. I think as we go further along this beach towards Burton Bradstock, we'll find better specimens of this stuff. Yeah, see, there's a bit that you can see bigger fragments of shells in it, including something that looks like a bit pyritized there, perhaps. Bigger chunks of oyster shells and things. There's just so much of it here, actually. So here's a really interesting piece, far too big to take home, but you can see again lots and lots of different shells in there. And this weird round thing there, is that a fish vertebra sticking up? Is that a crinoid stem? It doesn't go all the way through. Oh, it's got a bit of chatoyance to it. Isn't that interesting? Not carrying that great big slab with me. Perhaps we'll be lucky and find a smaller piece with something similar in it. So coming up to this next pillbox, and I don't think this pillbox is actually situated where it was built. There's a land drain there. So I have a feeling that this pillbox, when it was first built, might have been up on the soil up there, up on that soil level, and I think it's been eroded down, and it just happens to have settled down in the right orientation. A lot of these pillboxes have been tipped over, turned around by the shifting gravels, you know, by the forces of nature, basically just jumbling the gravel around. It's quite powerful when it wants to move things. So yeah, I have a feeling that that pillbox might have been about 3 meters higher up than it is now when it was first built, and that it's just settled down onto the beach in what happens to be the right way up. Well, there's a piece with a very obvious looking oyster shell, but doesn't look too promising for grinding down. We'll keep looking. And you can see these didn't have a lot of foundations, just built on a concrete raft. I suppose we should go inside. You can see the imprint of the boards where they cast the cement, and the layers where they stopped and started. So along here there's a pour line of one kind of concrete, another kind of concrete, it's not much point going inside, they are just concrete boxes. Right, at the next opportunity, I think I'm going to get back up on the top and head back, because that seems like enough walking for today. One thing that's really interesting about the way these cliffs have slumped and eroded here, there's this sort of sandy clay material that's washed out here, and all of the stones are sticking up like knives in the clay. I assume that's just because of the way it turned over as it fell, but in some places it's almost like somebody stuck them in there as a defensive thing. Look, so imagine getting washed up on this beach only to find yourself torn to pieces by all the little knives of stone sticking out of it. Here's another one of those places where the stones are all just sticking up, and it is just because the clay, the sand sediment containing them has slumped down onto the beach, and then the waves have washed away the softer material. But it is curious how many of the stones are just sticking up. We really would not want to try to land a boat on that if the waves are up here. Okay, well, before we turn back, I'm just going to go and sit on this flat stone here, cup of coffee, and the rest of that chocolate, I think. I forgot about the almonds. What a lovely little surprise to find at the bottom of the bag. I've got a bag of salted almonds as well as my chocolate. They don't seem to have any salt at all, actually. They're just toasted almonds. So yeah, toasted almonds, dark chocolate, coffee, the wind and sun on my face, the crashing of the waves. It's been a good day. I was thinking about putting one of these bars of chocolate in with one of the biscuits into a little plastic bag with some smashed up almonds, and then putting it next to the flameless ration heater so the chocolate melts and coats the biscuit. I'm glad I didn't, really, because those biscuits were rock hard, and that probably just wouldn't have been as nice a thing as it sounds as an idea. Different biscuits, that would have been a thing worth doing. I think this is the piece I'm taking home. I'll be able to cut that on the tile saw and then polish a small piece of it. There's no particularly distinct shells in there. I can see the edge of quite a large one there, but I think once we grind that down and flatten it, we should see some interesting things popping out. That's my hope anyway. Also along here I found a few bits of discarded fishing equipment. We'll take those home. That'll either be disposed of properly or reused, and I'll pick up a few more bits while I'm here. Should be able to get up here. For a lot of this walk along here, there was just no way to get up onto the top, well, I suppose without scrambling up a cliff. And it's a slippery clay bank. Okay, I think there's a footpath here, a track or something. Well, notionally a track, but also kind of a river. So I think I might have to walk along the top here before I can find a place to rejoin a dry track. I got a bit of walking to do before I get back to the car, but I feel pretty well fed, and I think that's been a pretty decent ration pack. That doesn't look like I'm going to get through that puddle. Looks like I might have to go back on the beach. Oh well, just as well I'm marching on a full stomach. Quite interesting here, the entrance to a couple of properties. We're quite close to Bexington. Obviously they've done all sorts of things to try to shore this up. That looks like it used to be a ramp down there. Either that or they just poured a load of concrete down there to try to shore this all up. And some gabion baskets here as well. But it's interesting over here. I think these markers, yeah, this is to see if this crack is developing. So these markers, you've got one bit fixed to this bit of wall and one bit fixed to that bit of wall, and so you can take measurements off of that grid to see how much and how fast it's moving. Because the sea is relentless and the beach comes from the cliffs, so it is inevitable that as this beach wears away and washes away, fresh material is required to replenish the beach, or fresh material will be requisitioned by the sea, as it were, to replenish the beach. You know, if there's no beach there, then the cliffs erode, and if the cliffs erode, that becomes the beach. So it's a balancing process, but it's an ongoing process. Got here a memorial bench. John Varley, the old Coast Guards, Abbotsbury. The Sea Fever poem. I'm just going to sit here a while. I've got a stone to shake out of my boot. Oh, I've got myself in a bit of a mess. So yeah, some of this track I had to wade through mud and puddles. In fact, beyond these houses, it's barely a track. It's fallen away in places. I don't know if it actually goes all the way through. Anyway, yeah, I'm just going to take my boot off and shake out a pebble, and then we'll be back on our way. I must go down to the seas again, to the lonely sea and the sky, and all I ask is a tall ship and a star to steer her by, and the wheels kick and the wind's song, and the white sails shaking, and a grey mist on the sea's face, and a grey dawn breaking. I must go down to the seas again, for the call of the running tide is a wild call and a clear call that may not be denied, and all I ask is a windy day and the white clouds flying, and the flung spray and the blown spume and the seagulls crying. I must go down to the seas again, to the vagrant gypsy life, to the gull's way and the whale's way, where the wind's like a whetted knife, and all I ask is a merry yarn from a laughing fellow rover, and a quiet sleep and a sweet dream when the long trick's over. So the track's a little bit more civilized here from this part back towards Abbotsbury, but you notice there's gravel on the track. You notice how rounded those pieces of gravel are. This is not gravel that's washed out of those fields. This is gravel that's been propelled up here by the waves. Just stop and think about that for a moment. Look how far down the sea looks at the moment. That is low tide, more or less. At high tide, it's all the way up to these cliffs, and at high tide with a storm surge and fierce winds, the waves break right over here and carry this gravel and some larger stones too up onto this track, probably up into the fields beyond. In fact, yeah, just looking up on this bank, look, rounded pebbles, Chesil Beach pebbles up on the bank there, all the way across the top. I can see more of them over there. So when the waves crash here during a storm, it's not just water that washes up here, it's gravel, it's stones. that fly up here. In fact, these are pieces of that, these are flat pieces of that limestone that we saw down on the beach. So I imagine it could be quite hazardous being here during a storm. I wonder if any of the houses, the ones that are nearer the, yeah, that little hut there actually has got shutters on the windows, because otherwise they'd be broken by the stones. So back now at the pillbox where I had lunch. So a little bit of a walk to get back to the car, not too far. But it just occurred to me actually, so I've walked that half of Chesil Beach from Abbotsbury all the way along to Portland when we did the gravel survey video, but I've never walked the full length in one day of Chesil Beach this way. So perhaps that's a thing I should do in a future video, perhaps with another ration pack. I think that might be a summertime thing where we start early in the morning, we have breakfast, lunch and dinner on the beach, and walk from here probably all the way to West Bay. That'll be a thing I think for a future video. It's a slightly shorter distance this end than the piece we walked along there, but more taxing because it's smaller gravel. See a float or something there. That's a thing off a rope, isn't it? It's a float or something, or a fender off of a rope. I think I'll take that and put it in the bin because it's plastic and it's just weathering away, so we'll get rid of that. So yeah, we got that pillbox there. If you look up there, there's an octagonal one up in the hill there, and then there's something else over there which looks like it was another pillbox or defensive structure. And I imagine probably if we looked around, we may not be able to see them, some might be overgrown, but these hills are dotted with them. A couple of little things here actually to note. You can read different things in the landscape here. So you can see on this field here, there's a line of darker grass that goes across there. I'm just going to go back a moment so we can have a look at that, because it corresponds with, you see in the hedgerow behind there, there's a slight dip. It goes down and back up again. And all the way up the hill here, there's a little watercourse. Starts up there, you can see it coming down across here and then across this field. So there's not quite a river, not quite a stream, but a little underground watercourse down there where surface nutrients, you know, animal droppings are getting washed into a little channel and then washed down this small watercourse across the field here. And that's caused the grass to grow a little bit darker green there, just because it's getting a little bit more moisture, a little bit more nutrient in that area. There are some other dark green patches over here which are a different thing. So these dark green patches on that field, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see them, but they're kind of loops and rings, and that's from fungus. That's maybe fairy ring mushrooms or some other fungus that's growing in rings on the grass there. And the fungus, because it's an organism like we are, it digests things and it excretes. The fungus is excreting nutrients that are causing the grass to be darker green there. And so those little dark green marks there is where there might be mushrooms growing. It could be field mushrooms actually. The field mushrooms grow in rings as well. And this is a pasture, so that could be a place where you'd find field mushrooms. Two different kinds of dark green grass telling us two different stories. I think that might be it for this video, apart from we'll just go back to Studio Shrimp just to look at that piece of limestone that I picked up and I intend to polish. I don't think that's going to be polished in this video.
These are the two bits of stone I brought home with me. This is the piece that's got slightly larger shell fragments in it. And yeah, it is limestone. It's got a lot of shell in there, but it should be possible to cut a piece of that and just lap it down flat on silicon carbide paper or something maybe. But we should end up with something that shows all the different kinds of materials in there. That's the other piece that I picked up first. I meant to toss that away, but I kept it anyway. The only things I didn't use out of the ration pack were this little stove and the tablets. Yeah, I suppose probably to be completely authentic, I probably should have tried to boil the water for the soup on there, but it's just, I know what these things are like. They're not that great. They're smelly. They don't produce a great deal of heat. it just didn't seem any point doing that. So I've still got that for some other purpose, perhaps. I didn't use the matches, obviously, or the cable tie, or the lemon-scented wipe. And I didn't use the sugar or the chewing gum. I'm just going to now see if I can take this apart and decide which bits I'm going to salvage, if any. But yeah, the food. So the food was fairly simple, fairly plain flavours. The beef stew was not spicy or anything like that, but it was hearty and flavourful. The soup, I think, was probably a little bit mild, but again, comforting, pretty okay. I think it's probably true that users of these ration packs may often carry with them bottles of their favourite sauce or something like that, so that they can augment the flavours in the ration pack. Yeah, there's a little swivel there or something. Is there a hook in there? I'm just trying to mind my fingers while I do all of this. Yeah, I don't see a hook, but I think we'll have that little thing out there because yeah, there's a swivel. Might as well have that and put that in my fishing box if I ever do go fishing again. It's just a swivel, just to stop the thing, you know, stop the line getting twisted up. I suppose those little beads serve a purpose. Oh, there's another swivel there. Yeah, we'll have that. And the rest of it will go in the bin. That, I think, is the remains of a hook there. So that presumably got snagged on something and was left on the seabed to wash up during that storm. Anyway, yeah, a few little bits of miscellaneous fishing kit there to go in my box. But yeah, the ration pack, anyway, as I say, the ration pack, pretty good. I would say, flavour-wise, kind of a little bit uninteresting, unchallenging maybe in flavours, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Mild flavours can be hearty and subtle and enjoyable in their own right. It definitely was a welcome warm meal on a quite cold and windy and blustery day. Anyway, back to coastal shrimp now. So thanks for joining me on this windswept coastal ration pack test. I hope that's been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.